I can be sitting there and I'm talking to my wife in the kitchen. She says something, and all of a sudden an idea goes off in my head, and then I'm just out in la la land, right? My presence is completely, I'm sitting there, but I'm not there. How have you found ways to cope with that issue?
So I haven't.
Dang it. I asked most people that question, and nobody's had an answer for me yet. When you're driven, the need to accomplish a goal is relentless. Hard work and ambition compel you to do whatever's necessary. In my work as a personal injury trial lawyer for 18 years, it's common to meet driven people. Those with drive can have different personalities, careers, or backgrounds, but they possess one common factor. Despite their passions, driven people want to surround and motivate themselves with other driven people. If you want to learn how to overcome obstacles by learning from others, then tune in here. This is the Driven Crowd Podcast. Thank you for tuning into episode 30 of the Driven Crowd Podcast, fueled by Snellings Law. I'm your host, Scott Snellings. Our guest today is Leah Miller, a fractional CFO who provides financial consulting to small businesses specializing in law firms. Leah has a paralegal degree from Florida Southwestern State College and an MBA from Florida Gulf Coast University. After almost a decade as the firm administrator and chief financial officer of a personal injury law firm, Leah is well-versed in the problems that small businesses, especially those that are in the process of scaling, face. Leah, welcome to the Driven Crowd Podcast.
Hi, it's good to be here. I'm excited.
Yeah, so you are a brand new entrepreneur yourself.
I am.
We were just talking about that. So welcome to the world of entrepreneurism. We'll definitely get into that later. But first off, tell us, what is a fractional CFO?
So a CFO is a financial professional that is going to look into the future. So everybody is familiar with a CPA, and CPAs generally look at the past. They worry about your taxes and things like that. And so a CFO is going to look at the future. You're going to look at cash flow, forecasting, budgeting, set key performance indicators and monitor those and help you reach those goals and figure out, can you hire new staff, buy a new building, spend money. And so and
the answer is always yes, right?
Yes. Well, that's what, as a business owner, you always want it to be yes.
Yes.
So a fractional CFO is for those businesses that are not to the point of being able to hire a full-time CFO, because that obviously comes with a price tag to have a full-time CFO in office. And so a fractional CFO can work with you a couple hours a month, or meet with you, just once a month and analyze that data and just kind of be that team member that is that outside eye to help you make those strategic decisions, and that person to really get into your financial data and break it down for you and help you understand it more so that you can reach your goals. So
I would imagine as a fractional CFO, it is incredibly more difficult because you're not just dealing with one company, right? And the law firm that you came from, you had one company, you knew the ins and outs of everything going on there. You'd been with them for 10 years. And so now with this new venture, I'm assuming the goal is to sign up several clients, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so now you're going to have knowledge, intimate knowledge really, of several different clients spanning different industries, or even if you just did law firms, different practice areas. And so how do you think through the process of how do I go about learning about these different firms that can be completely different from where you came from, and then implementing the ideas that you have or concerns or the communication with those companies?
So I think one of the things that really helps is I just love to learn. So I was looking the other day, I wanted to get chickens. And so I was just reading everything there was about chickens. And so that's kind of how I am. So the different industry thing, I am working with a landscaping company. And so I'm learning the ins and outs of a landscaping company. And I think that's really fun. So just trying to kind of, learn some different things with the different industries. But I think the hardest part of working with multiple firms or businesses is learning to work with different business owners who have different ways of doing stuff. And so just learning to communicate with them and try to encourage them to make different decisions and things like that. So it is different. It is harder because I don't have the decision-making abilities that I had before as, the sole CFO. And so, the business owners are going to do what they want to do with their money. But I just have to be there to keep giving them advice and be their sounding board and hope that, we can work together and they will make the best decision for their business.
Yeah, that's a really interesting point, because I assume you didn't start off as a fractional CFO at the law firm you came from, correct? Or is the CFO?
No.
Okay.
No.
And so you worked there for a while and you worked up to that position, meaning you had however many years it took you to get to the CFO spot. You had that many years to build that trust and the credibility. And so with that comes the authority to make more and more decisions. And so as you go and you meet with these different business owners with, 100% different attitudes on money, on growth, on how much they want to be involved, how do you establish that credibility as quickly as possible to where they begin to, because I assume at the beginning, they're not really wanting to open up on everything, right? They're giving you kind of 30,000 foot information. And then once they trust you a little bit more, they'll let you dive deeper and deeper and deeper. So what is your speed to trust? How do you get there?
I think the biggest thing is just, especially working with law firms is, and we were kind of talking before we started recording, is I have that background knowledge of being in a law firm. And so I can be an expert in that field and I can communicate that to, the potential clients that I'm talking to, and then the clients when I am talking to them. And so I can relate to the attorneys, because it's normally attorneys that are, running the law firms. So I can relate to them in a way that I have been in there. I was a paralegal as my background. That's what I started as. And so I understand the ins and outs of cases and how they work and things like that. And so I can tie that in with the money part of things. And so I feel like that helps me to get to a point where building trust is a little bit easier. But it is hard for people to build trust because it's their money. And so that I think is harder for people to, let outsiders into than if, marketing, operations, the other parts of your business. And so just really continuing to be an expert in what I know and being confident in what I know and being open to listening to the business owners and being open to their ideas, and then being able to effectively communicate to them, my ideas and what I know from my background.
And so what about when you go outside of the law firm industry? You just mentioned a landscape company, right? So how different is a landscape company business-wise, so CFO-wise, in terms of how they run it, from a law firm?
So I think the biggest thing and what really makes the legal industry different is the rate of your, how your revenue comes in. So for the landscaping company, if we can forecast and see like there's going to be a cash flow issue coming up, then they can go out and kind of, get some jobs and hustle some things and increase that revenue when we know there's going to be a pinch in the cash flow. Whereas in a law firm, especially in a personal injury law firm, but even, estate planning and things like that, there's always going to be a delay in those fees coming in. So, personal injury, you're talking 12 to 18 months from the time you sign up a client till when you're getting fees coming in. Estate planning, I know, can be, 3 to 6 months. And so that is one of the biggest differences that I'm finding in the different industries, is just being able to do that cash flow forecasting and things like that, because everybody's, sales and revenue is a lot different across industries.
And so I love the fact how you kind of talked about what you did in response to my question as to what is a fractional CFO. You look into the future. So you're a fortune teller, right? The only difference is you can have some ability to change what that future looks like based on decisions that are made today. And so what is it that law firm owners or just business owners in general neglect to look at the most when they're making business decisions in terms of looking out into the future?
I think, it kind of does go back to, especially in personal injury, being, you've got this cycle of the ups and downs because it does take so long for those fees to come in. And so if you're not anticipating large expenses at specific times, then you can hit large expenses when your revenue is down. And that kind of puts you in a cash flow pinch. And so I think that's why, not only are you anticipating large expenses from a business standpoint of, does your building need a new air conditioner if you own your building, or do you need to hire more staff? But also large expenses on the case cost front, because if you have a big case that comes in and you're having to front a lot of costs on that, that also can cause a cash flow issue. So you have two different kinds of expenses. And if those are going to be really, increased, and your revenue is just not there at that time, then that's where you can really, come into some problems.
All right. So for a lot of entrepreneurs or business owners, they are at a point in their career where, hey, they're just getting started. I'm sure you're familiar with this, and you wear all the hats. Right? Mm-hmm. You had a LinkedIn post this morning. I think I posted something along this in response. And a lot of those hats, we're wearing them not because we like them, not because we're good at them, but because we have to wear them. We can't afford to pay anybody to do it. So at what size and at what priority should it be to look into a CFO, a fractional CFO?
I think, when you're hitting that like mid six figures area, you can really start looking at, the fractional CFO, and to help you get to that, first $1 million year. And, a lot of people talk about getting from the first million to the 3 million. So in that kind of area is when you can really start, looking at talking to a fractional CFO and making those, more strategic decisions. And you don't have to go all in either. There's different tiers and levels of how much input you have from a fractional CFO. Are you going to have a one-time meeting and just kind of get look at where you are, or are you going to have those monthly meetings or quarterly meetings and things like that? So I think once you hit, that mid six figures, that's when you really need to start thinking about putting more thought into your finances.
Okay. All right. So you recently started your own business. You were with the law firm for 10 years. Mm-hmm. What was the decision-making process in jumping out on your own?
So a little bit of my background, I was a paralegal. I wanted to be an office manager one day, I figured in the future. And through a couple of different things, I became the firm administrator pretty early on in my career at the law firm. And once I went to school and got my MBA, that's when I kind of morphed into that CFO role. And that's where I've been the last couple of years. So I started doing some side work just for fun, doing bookkeeping and a little bit of consulting and things like that. And I really thought it was going to be just that side work for a while. And back in September, we were hit by the hurricane here where I live, and our firm flooded. And so we had to move to a different building, and my commute became about an hour long. And I have 3 kids. And I was home with them for several months after the hurricane. And between that, and I feel like being home during the COVID time, it really opened my eyes to being home with my kids more. And it really wasn't possible for me to be remote as the firm administrator because I needed to be in the office with the employees. And so that kind of is and things started taking off with my business. And so that's kind of what gave me the push to leave the firm, just because I, didn't want that long commute anymore, and I wanted to be home more for my kids. And I saw the possibilities with my business. And so even though it was really, really scary, I took the jump, and I'm excited about it.
Was there a specific moment when you said, yes, this is what I'm going to do? And if so, what was that moment? What caused that decision to be finalized in your head?
There really wasn't a specific moment. It was just kind of my friend who has the landscaping business. She's always been like just follow your dreams person. And I've been a very no, everything has to have a plan person. And so a lot of her encouraging me. I'm doing a lot of business consulting for them. And so we increased that sum, and she was like, hey, I need to hire somebody to do more business consulting. Do you want to do more work for me, or do I need to go hire somebody else? And so that kind of gave me the opportunity to be able to say yes. And I don't know, it just felt right. Like the drive was really becoming an issue with my kids, like being able to get them and do things with them. And so that kind of, I don't know, it just felt right at that time. So.
And so what I'm hearing is you had an encourager. You had somebody who was backing you up and supporting you. And that encourager also was the one who could say, hey, I can pay you more money too, because I need your services.
I did. And my husband encouraged me also. And so yeah, she was my big encourager of like, don't worry about it. You don't have to overthink it. Like, it'll all work out. If you work really hard, like, it's going to work out. So that's what we did.
Okay. So decision's been made. You have had your own business for how long now?
I officially got my LLC in January.
Okay.
Yep.
And so you've had your LLC since January. You are 8.5-ish months in. What are some of the biggest unanticipated challenges that you've faced to this point?
Oh, the networking and talking to people is exhausting. I am a numbers introvert person. Although I did have somebody say to me recently, like, I would have never known that you were an introvert, because once I'm in a crowd, like, I can talk to people. So that's exhausting. And it's hard to work for yourself, because you always have like sounds cliche, but like the motivation. And so there's a definitely a level of motivation that, like, you have to kind of, even on the days that you're not feeling it, like, you've got to keep it going, because if you're not working, you're not making money. Like, you gotta keep working at it. So it's like a roller coaster. Like, some days I feel on top of the world and I'm going to get all the clients and I'm doing all the great things. And then the next day it just like get really discouraged, and I know I just got to keep going. And so it's an up and down thing, but like, it's great. I love it, but it's up and down for sure.
Yeah. And you weren't kidding about one day being on top of the world and the next being just run over by it. And sometimes you have both of those things multiple times in one day. I know whenever, I was firmly on my own, one of the things that was really difficult for me was shutting down the brain, right? Was actually saying, okay, you know what, the business, I can take a break. It's okay. It's a weekend. It's at night. And so I'm going to shut off that part of my brain and be present with the family. You mentioned you have 3 little girls, a husband. How do you make that transition with, being completely overwhelmed with a new business and all that goes with that, all of your many hats? How do you shut that down and actually find time to be present mentally?
So that, I think, has been one of the hardest things this summer, especially. So this week, the girls are back in school. And so I told myself this week, because I was struggling with that, and I was finding myself being on the computer when they were home. And I'm like, wait, no, I'm doing this so that I have more time with them. So why am I on my computer when they're home? So starting this week, they get off the bus at 3:30. And so I'm done at 3:30. If I have more work that I need to get done at night, my husband goes to work at 4:30, 5 o'clock in the morning. So he goes to bed kind of early. So there have been days that I stay up later after everybody goes to bed. But I have set firm boundaries with myself for once they're off the bus, I am turn my computer off, cooking dinner, doing all those things, take them to all their activities. So I have been having to set those boundaries for sure. And I struggled with that a little bit over the summer.
Okay, so you've set boundaries for the physical things, right? You're not going to be sitting on a computer, looking at a phone. But mentally, how do you set those boundaries? Because I struggle with this. That's why I'm asking. I can be sitting there and I'm talking to my wife in the kitchen. She says something, all of a sudden an idea goes off in my head, and then I'm just out in la la land, right? My presence is completely, I'm sitting there, but I'm not there. How have you found ways to cope with that issue?
So I haven't.
Dang it. I asked most people that question, and nobody's had an answer for me yet.
I realized it the other day, because I was like, thinking to myself, I'm like, my husband doesn't want to, he loves hearing my ideas, and he's super excited about my business and all of that. But like, he doesn't want to hear it all the time. So the other day I was like, that's all I was thinking about was like my next new idea of what I was going to do. And all of a sudden I was like, well, I need to talk to him about something else. So I've been trying to be a little bit better about that. And I definitely try to find people that I can talk to about business. Luckily, my one friend with the landscaping company, I can, kick business ideas back with her a lot. So finding other people that I can kick ideas off of, so that I'm not constantly talking about it at home, I guess helps a little bit. But other than that, no, I'm struggling there for sure.
Yeah, I have the opposite problem. My wife wants to know, hey, what's going on? Tell me about what happened at work, this, that, or the other. And I'm just like, because then I got to go through the whole story, right? And the mental energy for that kind of thing is just gone. And so I'm the opposite. I tend to shut out way more than I should. But okay, so tell me about marketing. Brand new business. You don't have any kind of foundation. What are the steps that you're going through right now to kind of formulate your marketing plan and then execute your marketing plan?
So I started with Instagram and Facebook because that's what I knew. Facebook, I've kind of given up on that. I just don't see the value there. So, a lot of people are saying like, where's your target audience? And you need to target them. And so I've done Instagram and I, follow attorneys on there. They follow me back. I comment. And again, with my background, like I'm able to have intelligent conversations in comments on social media and things like that with people in my target market because I've been there. Like I know ins and outs of cases and I love it still. Like I want to stay involved in the legal community and talk about cases and things like that. So that's kind of where I started with Instagram. I was also doing some in-person Chamber of Commerce events that terrified me because I'm just not really good at like going out and talking to people that I don't know, but I made myself go. And so in the last month, I have gotten into LinkedIn, which also intimidated me because I just didn't know how to do it. And so somebody was finally like, you just need to get on there and post, just post and comment to people. And I had in my mindset, on Facebook, I don't like to comment to people I don't know, and LinkedIn's completely different. And so I definitely had a network already on LinkedIn from, my past in the legal community. And so I've been on there and I'm just posting, I try to post daily on there and content that helps people because I find small business owners, they just don't know the financial part of owning a business. It intimidates them. Even as basic as what's a profit and loss and a balance sheet. And so I've been trying to post tips and tricks and things like that on LinkedIn and having good conversations with people. And I actually really have had some great conversations with people and I really love it. So there's a whole world out there. So that's really been my marketing, is just getting on there and building relationships.
Yeah, and I think LinkedIn is a fantastic tool. I've been hearing more and more and more about it. I've always kind of avoided it. I've always had a LinkedIn account, and occasionally I'll look at it, like if somebody messages me or on the connection requests and stuff like that. But rarely have I ever interacted on it. But you're right. There's so many people, and it's reaching out to strangers is welcomed, right? I mean, so long as you're not just that guy who is, hey, buy my stuff, or you just have a bot spamming people. But I've found that people really want to interact on there, right? You put something on Facebook and who knows, and you could get, a bunch of people that put negative stuff on there, but rarely on LinkedIn. There may be debates, right? Hey, I disagree with you on this, but at least in the stuff that I'm looking at, rarely is it as nasty as it can get on like Facebook or not really Instagram, but other social media avenues. And so I think LinkedIn is a fantastic spot to really get in there and interact. And the best part about it, Miss CFO, is that it's free, right?
Yeah.
It's free. And so I think that's a fantastic avenue. And, a lot of Instagram, free, unless you're running ads on it. But I think for those people who don't have the marketing budget, I mean, that's a fantastic place to start. Get out there, start getting to know people. You can find your target audiences that way too.
Yeah. Well, and I always thought, like, when I was at the law firm, we had people doing our social media and stuff like that. And I thought that was great. We had great social media posts. But until I started with my own, I never realized how getting on there and really interacting is the key to it. So you can have beautiful posts that post every single day, but if you're not getting on there and talking to people, it's really not doing a whole lot of anything. And so I've just been focusing on building relationships with people. And I haven't actually reached out and messaged anybody and asked. I have not tried to sell my services to anybody in like a message or anything like that, because that's not really my personality. And so my whole thing is I'm just going to post things I know and have good relationships with people. And, I know that that'll come back in the end.
Yeah, and you mentioned, one of my favorite things networking wise to talk about, and that's provide value. Hey, you know that a lot of small business owners in your niche, right? They don't have a business background. I didn't have a business background. They don't know how to read the numbers. They don't know what they should be looking at. A lot of business owners, I've heard it firsthand. They look at their bank account. How much money's in there? Okay, cool, we're good. And it's a pretty scary way to run a business, but it's also it's easy, right? It's easy to run it that way, right up until there's no money in that account. But yeah, providing value. So tell me this. A lot of people hate networking events in person, right? How did you forced yourself to go do it for one? That's the biggest part. The hardest part is getting out of the car and actually going inside and not turning right back around. When you go to a networking event like that, do you have a game plan, or are you just there hoping to meet people? How do you approach that?
No game plan. The first time getting myself out of the car was the game plan.
That's the win.
Luckily, I saw someone I knew from high school there.
There you go.
Because I do live where I went to high school. And so I kind of went and talked to her, and then I met other people that way. And so now I'm starting to see the same people every time I go to those. And so I talk to the people I know, and then other people come up to us. I did meet a really, really nice woman at the first one I went to, and she told me, she was a graphic designer, I think, and she said, you just need to go up to everybody and talk to them. She was like, even if they don't want to look like they want to talk to you, you just need to go talk to them. Don't even worry about it. And these people are never going to know who you are again. And so you just need to talk to them. Don't worry about what they say. And I've not gotten there yet to be able to do that. But that's kind of my game plan, I guess, is to just try to talk to them, force myself.
Yeah, those networking events, they can be, honestly, they can be a complete waste of time, or you can find some gold. One of the things that I love doing is I always get cards, right? I still love getting business cards for people and follow up. Whether it's, I think Lauren and I talked on a podcast a couple of episodes ago about handwritten notes, right? It's so easy when you meet somebody. I'll either make a voice memo or a note of something that I remember about our conversation, and then next day, hey, send a note. Super easy, and they will remember you the next time you walk into the room because they got the note from you. I usually put a business card in there too with my picture on it so that they put two and two together because they probably told that story to like 5 different people.
I've started doing, and I started from like day one of my business, is when people were referred me to other people. And even if I didn't sign up the referral or anything like that, I sent a handwritten thank you card to them of, hey, thanks for thinking of me. Thanks for referring this person to me. I really appreciate it. Because I have heard that, nobody gets handwritten thank you notes very often anymore. And so I think that does set you apart from somebody, is taking the time to do that. And it really makes a difference.
Okay, so going back to kind of expectations, starting off a business, what's something else unexpected that you've run into, either good or bad?
Oh man, that's a good question. How much time I don't have in the day. I had the expectation that, I don't have this drive anymore to work. So I'm going to cook dinner every day, and my house is going to be clean, and my business is going to all be done like every day. And that has not happened. The days seem to go a lot faster when you are just working on your own stuff. And I think there can be some time suck in there. So I've started, tracking my time to make sure that I'm not, losing time places that I don't need to be. But yeah, just the way that time works when you're working for yourself and you're not on somebody else's time clock seems to be a lot different.
Yeah, it's amazing. I don't know. The only time I'm checking my watch during the day is to figure out if I can make the next meeting, or if I need to push something back, or where I need to be at what time. So I know for me, whenever I first started, one of the issues was, I started a law firm, right? That means I'm supposed to be doing legal work. And at the very beginning, I was doing very little legal work. I had legal work to do, but all of the other stuff just it was time creep. right? Whether
Mhm.
it was the marketing and having to make decisions there, whether it was operations, trying to build out, hey, here's how we handle cases with this new software, or finances, like, hey, I got to deal with the bank on something. I got to go drive to the bank to get a letter on their letterhead that says I'm an authorized signatory. I just had to deal with that the other day and I was so irritated
Oh,
with it. But all those things just come in. All of a sudden it's 5 o'clock.
mhm.
And all those people quit bothering you because they're at home. And now it's like, okay, now it's time to start the legal work, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's where, like, and that kind of goes back to my LinkedIn post today, especially for attorneys, is they want to just do legal work. Like, that's why you got into it. Not, I feel like other entrepreneurs, like they build a business because they want to build a business, but I feel like attorneys, like, they started a law firm because they want to do legal work. And you just don't have the time sometimes to do that legal work because you do have to worry about the banking and the trust account and all, like, that really important stuff. And so, and I find that for myself as well, as just the marketing and the processes and making sure, my engagement letter is the right way and all of that. And so it's definitely something you have to balance for sure.
Yeah, there's just so many unexpected kind of tedious things that pop up. They were like, oh, well, I didn't think about that. Oh, yeah, I got to do that now because I don't have anybody helping me. Or, oh, wow, this actually really does take a lot longer than I thought it should take. But it is. It is what it is, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And so at what point do you plan on hopefully bringing someone on to help? And what is the first thing you're going to get rid of? Something I assume
So,
you're probably not good at and don't like.
so this kind of twofold. The original plan was when I started the bookkeeping part of my business, because I do bookkeeping as well, because I think that's needed. A lot of business owners don't realize that, they think that they can just hook up QuickBooks to their bank account and QuickBooks does all the work for them. And so the bookkeeping part was something that I started, and I probably am going to bring my mom on before too long. She does bookkeeping for my uncle, but he may not have his firm, long term because he's getting up to retirement age. And so the plan was to have a bookkeeping firm that my mom would primarily do the bookkeeping. And so that's that part of it that I want to do. But the other part of it that I want to get rid of first is the marketing and like social media and stuff like that. But I just haven't figured out how that'll work because I still want my personal brand on it and I still want to build those relationships and talk to those people. So I've been kicking around in my head, do I just get somebody to go into Canva and make all the posts and everything for me and then I still go in and comment, or I just haven't wrapped my head around that. But definitely the marketing social media stuff. I've done a good job at it, I think, but that's not my favorite part.
Yeah, so we both know Charlie Mann, who was on a couple episodes ago. He and I were joking the other day about you can kind of tell when someone hires someone else to take over their content writing on social media or hires them to go respond to posts. We were talking about this one guy that we know, and all of a sudden his LinkedIn posts and responses sounded like he was a surfer dude. And this guy is not that way whatsoever. And so we're like, yeah, you can pretty much backtrack on LinkedIn and figure out exactly when he hired someone to go in and do that for him. And I mean, nobody's you, right? Nobody has the
Yeah.
knowledge or the relationships with those people. So to me, it just seems really hard to outsource something like that. The content
Yeah.
design and all that kind of stuff, absolutely. But going in
Yeah.
and sounding like you, really, really hard.
Yeah, and that's why I don't think I'll ever outsource the commenting and things like that. And I was like, even for the captions that I want to do, I'm like, can I do like voice notes and send them to whoever's going to do them? And so then they can kind of get my idea. But definitely the designing and Canva and all of that. I'm not a creative. And so I've done my own website and everything, and I was really proud of it. But one day I'm going to redo all of that and rebrand everything and invest in all of that. And that'll be exciting. But for right now, it works. But yeah, I don't think I'll ever give up the commenting and all of that because I do enjoy that part of it in building the relationships.
What is something that was just completely unforeseen by you that you're actually really enjoying? Either you didn't think about it at all, or you're like, I am going to hate doing this, but hey, I actually really enjoy this.
I think building those relationships, even though it's exhausting sometimes to do all the networking and talk to people, I think just talking to people and building the relationships and seeing what's out there, because I was in like a little bubble of my town that I lived in the legal community that I live in for so long, that it's been really cool to branch out and meet different people that are all over the country, and see different parts of, learn different parts of the legal world. We were talking before about some of the differences before we started recording, with some of the differences with Texas and Florida and personal injury. And so that part's been really cool too. I've really enjoyed a lot of that.
And so putting your CFO cap back on for a minute, what are some of the biggest mistakes that you see business owners making?
Number one, I would say just not having the basics in place of the good bookkeeping. You need to keep your business and your personal expenses separate. And it sounds so basic and easy, but it's a problem for a lot of people, and they just don't think about it. And so that's on a basic level. I see that. And I think on a higher level, just not thinking about that projection and the cash flow. And, I get needing something for your business right away. Like, I want to buy stuff all the time. I was talking about something I wanted to buy for the business, and my husband's like, well, you have the business credit card. I was like, well, I have to pay that business credit card now. So, just trying to balance, do you really need everything right now for your business, or can we wait and see in the future? Because we don't need everything right now. There's steps we can take, goals we can do. And then I think not having goals, like, you just have to have goals, and you have to know why you want something. Why do you want to make more money? It's not necessarily about the money. What's $1 million going to bring you a year? What are you able to do? What are your goals with that money? And so I think setting a clear vision helps you get back to those basics and make doing those basics worth doing.
I'm sure you probably, shock a ton of business owners as you sit there and you ask them, probably in your initial meeting, okay, what's your goal? Where do you want to be? Because they're probably looking at you going, I just need someone to figure out my QuickBooks and, tell me where I'm spending too much money. And you're like, well, I got to know where you're trying to get, right? Because if you're only trying to stay where you are and not go out of business, then that's one set of planning. But if you're trying to go from 1 million to 20 million, okay, we got to talk about completely different things here.
Yeah. And I think you need to know the goal so that you know what steps to take. And I think sometimes people don't know, what steps to take to get to that goal. You may want to go from 1 million to 3 million, and your first thought is, I need to hire an attorney so that we can generate more revenue. Well, can you afford that? Especially in the PI world, when your fees are delayed 12 to 18 months, can you sustain an attorney's salary for 12 to 18 months before that attorney's actually bringing in more revenue? And so, things like that, they don't think of. And if you don't have goals set and you don't know where you're going, you can't just randomly hire people without knowing, because then you may need to cut back on expenses or do other things. And so that's where the strategic decisions really come in, and knowing those goals and where you want to go.
And I know, certainly at first I was this way before we started, growing and getting more into metrics and things like that. But you, as a business owner, a lot of times you rely on your gut, right? Mm-hmm. Especially as a trial lawyer, we rely on our guts a whole lot. Like, hey, I know this is going to play well, or I know there's this fact out there. I just need to go find it. But when it comes to, your financial decisions, it's way scarier to be making those based on your gut rather than actual hard data. Maybe your gut tells you the ultimate yes or no, but at least you have all that data there to know what issues that decision is going to bring upon you.
Well, and I think early on, especially as a first-time business owner, when you're the one doing everything and you're the only one there, then your gut may be all you have at that point. And I make some decisions that way. But as you're growing and your firm is growing, you're not only people, like other people are relying on you. So you're not only worrying about yourself at that point, and so only making gut decisions can lead to problems down the road for your employees who are relying on you. And, you really want to think about that. And so having that data and those metrics and making those strategic decisions. And then in the end, if you have A or B and want to use your gut, that's fine. But know that you can back it up and that you can actually follow through with what you're doing. And so I think there's a time and a place to go with your gut, because I'm big on, I've got a gut feeling. I just feel like this is a good decision. But knowing that like you have the finances to follow through with that decision is important.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, we are getting low on time here, Leah. So a couple of ending questions for you. Favorite books? It could be fiction or nonfiction.
I'm a big, for fiction books, romance novel person. My grandma gave us like Nora Roberts romance novels when we were 10, and they're not appropriate for 10-year-olds.
No, I wouldn't imagine so. I have a
9-year-old now, and I think back and I'm like, what was she giving us to read? So if I'm going to read fiction, it's that.
Hey, she got you hooked on reading, right? That was, I guess, her way of getting you hooked on reading.
We were reading. We weren't bothering her. We used to go stay on their farm for weeks at a time in the summer. Nonfiction books, I've been really like into business books recently. I listen to all of that stuff on Audible, and I also like memoirs and stuff like that. So like political memoirs and things like that, like on both sides of the political spectrum. Like I like Michelle Obama's, I like Sarah Huckabee's. Like I like listening to all those different perspectives too. So.
Okay, what about a specific business book that you've read that has affected you in the way that you run your business or decisions that you make?
So there's one I just talked about recently. It's called Eat That Frog. It's about not procrastinating, because my family is known to be procrastinators. And so I've really had to struggle with that and like not be a procrastinator and just get things done. And so that book gave like tips on how to just get things done and not procrastinate. So
it's funny. I think everyone is a procrastinator at some level when it comes to maybe not procrastinating work, but procrastinating things that we really don't want to do. At our weekly meetings, we can see where the frogs are, and there's direct orders of, hey, you got to go eat that frog today. Right after this meeting, you're going to go make that call, or you're going to go sit down and hammer out this letter or demand or brief or whatever. And it's so funny because that phrase is used in our office at least once a week, probably more.
And it's once you do it, it's not that bad. It's like, oh, why did I just put that off? I used to do it in school too. I'd wait till the last minute to write my papers, and they turned out really good. So I don't know. It worked sometimes.
Yeah, stress is a driver for some people. Yeah.
Yes.
So we try to move the stress up by putting pressure on them from inside.
Yeah.
Okay. Yep. Finally, favorite movie.
Oh, I really like the movie Silence of the Lambs.
That is one of my top 3.
Admit that.
No, that's one of my top 3. People always give me a weird look whenever I say that too.
Yeah, I was talking about that recently, and my daughter was like, "What's that?" I'm like, "Oh yeah, we're not going to watch that one yet."
We just watched it with our 16-year-old not too long ago. I think she liked it, but she wasn't blown away. So I don't know how well it's aging, but I love it.
Facebook just got me with a shirt, and it's a Halloween shirt, but it has like a saying on it about like the lotion and all that stuff. And I just ordered that last week.
Just put the lotion in the basket.
Yeah.
I almost said it in the weird voice too. So my wife will be like rolling her eyes. All right. Well, Leah, thank you so much for your time and for coming on. And thank you to everyone out there for tuning in to episode 30 of the Driven Crowd podcast. If you are in the Frisco area, be sure and go visit the amazing people at the Aussie Grind Coffee House and grab a bite to eat, get some of their delicious coffee. And we will see you next time on the Driven Crowd podcast.